Hi, everyone. I can see everyone is joining in and welcome. And remember, uh, if you'd like to change your name and add where you come from, um, and whether you are a WITSI or a UCT grad, please go ahead and do so. Uh, really good to see you all. Thank you for being on time. Uh, we did say we'd start pretty promptly because everyone is busy. So I just want to start the program. Welcome you all. So proud to be able to welcome you on behalf of both the panelists, the moderator, and the team that put this together. The WITS Fund US, WITS University, and the University of Cape Town Development and Alumni Department. My name is Nasheen Arfani, and I am the US representative for WITS. And it is, as I said, such an honor to welcome you all on behalf of everyone involved. Innovation, resilience, and creativity. That's what we see when we look at the UCT and WITS grads living in the US. We convened this webinar to hear firsthand from some of the outstanding graduates and to understand better what it is that gave them their edge in their innovation as founders and leaders here in the US. What lessons did they learn from both their successes and their failures? We hope you'll enjoy the session and that it will inspire you in your own personal and professional life. We invite you to use the chat function to let us know your name and if you're from WITS and UCT and what city and country, because truly it's a global audience you're joining from. You can also type questions into the chat during the program. My colleague from UCT Marifel will moderate the questions and see if the panel is able to get to them. Today, the conversation will be moderated by our own and very well-known South African, who is a UCT grad herself, Nadia Bilchik. We're so grateful to you, Nadia, for taking your time and expertise in the planning and the execution of this webinar. And we're just delighted to have you involved. We thought it's easier to show a short clip to illustrate the depth of Nadia's expertise, and then we hand over to her to introduce the panelists themselves.
Nadia Bilchik is a television news anchor, keynote speaker, author, trainer, and communications consultant.
19 #1 best-selling
have been nominated and won so many awards throughout your careers.
She has a wealth of experience interviewing and consulting with well-renowned figures, celebrities, and corporations. Nadia speaks on how to get people to like you, trust you, and want to do business with you.
Over the last few weeks, the entire world has been monitoring the treatment of your grandfather, Nelson Mandela. And my job was to introduce it and provide.
With topics like leveraging the power of your personal presence, networking for success, and lighting the fire. Nadia Bilchik.
Well, what a great pleasure it is to be here today. And thank you to every single one of you who has joined us. Sawubona, Dumelang, Goeiedag, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever in the world you are. So I have the great pleasure today of facilitating a discussion with 4 extraordinary entrepreneurs. And our goal today is to share their journeys, their insight. Today is a masterclass. So I'm going to introduce each one of our panelists in alphabetical order. And first, we're going to hear from UCT alum. She's the co-founder and CEO of Pandora Health, Dr. Aisha Pandor. So Aisha, if you don't mind putting on your camera, she's a scientist building category-defining companies across health and technology. So after we've heard from Aisha, we then go to WITS alum and CEO of Plan Forward, Jane Levy. Jane started her career on Wall Street. She had her own hedge fund. She was Chief Growth Officer at Java Analytics, which she successfully sold. And Jane is also the president of the WITS Fund, focusing on raising money in the US for WITS. Then we have, after Jane, I hope your camera's on, great, UCT alum. Now, he is Tesla's third employee in Africa. He's the founder and CEO of Satellite. It's a US-based space company. Now, how cool is this? Because he is building virtual AI data centers in orbit. Rama Afulo, and Rama has the trifecta. He's worked for Tesla, Google, and SpaceX. And yes, we are allowed to ask him about Elon Musk. Right, Rama? And then we have WITS alum, a global thought leader in data-driven decision-making. He's the head of data and research of Africa Insights, Tami Ndlovu. Tami is also the CEO of Data Advise. It's a market research and strategy advisory firm. So for extraordinary entrepreneurs, and starting with Aisha, I'm going to ask you to share your current entrepreneurial venture. And also, Aisha, if you can share some of the qualities and competencies that have been instrumental in your entrepreneurial success.
Thanks, Nadia, and thrilled to be part of this conversation. So thanks to UCT and WITS for putting it together. I am co-founder of two companies. My first company is a South African founded and South African headquartered company called Sweep South. That is a home and care services platform that helps people who are looking for work and who provide care services and connects them with people who need help at home with looking after both their homes and their families. And a big part of the business is addressing unemployment in South Africa. We all know that we have an extremely high unemployment rate, particularly amongst young people, women. And so there's a huge impact element to my first company. I handed over to a new CEO a few years ago, still sit on the board. My second company, which you mentioned, Pandora Health, is based here in the US. And we focus on helping people with chronic health conditions manage their health in collaboration with their doctors using AI and a diverse care team. And we sort of collect a range of health data, use that to provide very personalized protocols to people and sort of nurture them through a health journey. And then I also sit on the founding board of a fund called E4E Africa, which I founded at the end of 2019. We've raised 3 funds. We've supported over 20 high growth, primarily South African, but also East African startup companies, and super proud of the work we do there as well. And then in terms of some of the skills that have helped me in my career, I mean, there are a lot, I think, as entrepreneurs, and I'm sure my fellow panelists will agree, you sort of need this like huge basket of skills to weather all of the things that get thrown at you. But I think some of the things that I probably want to call out is grit. I think grit is probably inherent to a degree and based on, you know, your natural makeup and your childhood and things like that. But certainly in university and having to kind of make it through 10 years of studies, you know, which sometimes involved sleeping under my lab bench. And I remember being in the lab with my boyfriend at the time, who's my husband, on New Year's Eve. So grit certainly being one of them. I think having analytical skills and being able to take a step back and look at things from an analytical perspective, and then being adaptable to change and being able to and this was particularly in my postgrad studies, you know, being able to deal with it when my cells died or a machine wasn't working or my research project took a different turn. And those have all been crucial for my journey as an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Aisha. And we now go to Jane Levy.
Thank you. Very happy to be here with everybody. So I am currently the co-founder and CEO of a company called Plan Forward. And we offer a solution to dental practices and groups so that they can offer a membership to their uninsured patients. So I joined the company about 4 years ago, and we raised some capital, we rebuilt the product, and now we're scaling the company. I have been in startups quite a long time, probably 20 years or so, and have seen different things, but have definitely been involved in different ways. So in this particular instance, I am leading the company, and so like Aisha, I think the skill set has varied at different points of the journey. And now, the kind of the bringing together the juxtaposition of everything that I learned at WITS and at business school, together with the value system that we build as entrepreneurs and as immigrants, kind of bringing those two together is what I think has been most powerful for me. I think the skill set or the things that I lean into are definitely grit, definitely resilience. Every day is a challenge. Every day you have hundreds of problems that you have to deal with, but definitely people skills. And really, you have a vision of where the company should go, and you then have to translate that for the folks that are working on the front line and what that means to them, and bring them along with the vision and getting their buy-in. So really working together with people and motivating them, I think, is also a tremendous skill set that entrepreneurs need.
And I think, Jane, as you say, these things are so invaluable in an AI world, the things that are irreplaceable. So thank you for that. If you have just joined us, the panel is extraordinary. Please type into the chat where you're joining us from. Also, if you have specific questions for any one of our panelists, please type them into the chat and we will get to them. But I'm now going to Rama Afulo. And Rama, again, just your current entrepreneurial ventures and also the skills that have allowed you to be where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Nadia, and thanks everyone for joining. My name is Rama Ochieng Afulo, the founder and CEO of Satellite. Shout out to my dad, who I can see has also joined this call. He's from UKZN, so they're not involved in this. All right. So Satellite, what we do is we turn satellites into programmable nodes in a virtual AI data center in space. The idea is to offset the largest cost center for satellites outside of building the satellite and launching the satellite, which is sending the data down from space. And this is a software-first platform. We're live on a couple of satellites already. Been doing this for 2 years. And just last Friday, we actually performed AI inference in space. So we're going to be building a foundational small language model interoperability layer in space, and doing this with NASA and a bunch of other folks. We've also got some MOUs with the Kenya Space Agency. I'm originally from Kenya. And going out to Angola next week to sign something with the Angolan Space Agency. So doing this in a worldwide fashion. I think we'll dive a little bit more into the background later on. But I think the skill sets that for me have had the most impact, I think, firstly, is a work ethic. Like I said, my parents are very hard workers. My dad's a professor of electrical engineering. My mom's a computer scientist, and that was super instilled in me. My older brother is a software engineer as well, and he was, very entrepreneurial with us growing up. Like, we were one of the few people in the neighborhood who had a CD writer and used to, sell CDs and whatnot for folks back when that was a thing. And my younger brother's a stuntman, right? So we're like just all over the place as a family. But I think that work ethic is super important, and that's been instilled in me from the very beginning. Right, doing homework like during the holidays when all the kids were playing, right, was super helpful. Then conviction, for me, like, just there's a lot of folks who tell you that things don't make sense or things don't work. Could be people who are supposedly experts in the field, right? Can be other engineers in the field as well. It can be people who've been working in the field for 20, 30 years, who even some of the biggest players out there, some of the richest people out there, like, rely on for their advice, and they can be incredibly wrong. In fact, some of the people who are leading the field that you're trying to get into are often very wrong, because most people cannot predict the future. So I think having that conviction, saying, hey, like, I see something here and I'm going to go ahead and try to do something is quite impactful. Before November last year, no one believed in orbital data centers. Now it's at the epicenter of a lot of the things that folks are doing. I think beyond that, a bias for action and replying fast super important, right? Like emails, just being good at that, being someone who's got this like impact, like who applies for every opportunity that's out there. Why not, right? Why not you, right? Like why should it be someone else, right? Why should you be tired that day? Like you are not tired. That's a mental state of being. Like push through that thing, right? So having that bias for action, being someone who's reliable, that folks know that they can depend on, they'll get answers from you, and you're honest in your approach. I think those are the things that, for me, have been real skill sets. Notice none of this had to do with the engineering background or any of that stuff. Like this is like stuff that basically anyone can do.
We promised you a masterclass, and so far you've really providing that. I love the way Rama goes, AI inference in space. You'll have to unpack that for us later. And now we get to Tami and Lovo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tami Ndlovu, as has been introduced. I am the founder and CEO of Data Advice. And what we do is provide organizations with information to make critical decisions so that they can make data-driven decisions. I think the days of the crystal ball approach where you might guess what's coming down the pike are over. We're living the information age now, and a lot of organizations use information to make decisions. And so we help them uncover those data gaps so that they can make strategic decisions. And throughout the course of that work, I discovered that there's a big depth of information when you start to look at the continent and look at Africa. And that has led me to my second venture, which is Africa Insights. And what we're doing with Africa Insights, we like to characterize as building the Bloomberg of Africa. And what that means is we're providing your policymakers, your governments, your capital allocators with information that is packaged through platform intelligence that they can access at a click level that is comparable, whether you live in Kenya, as one of my parents is from, and whether you live in South Africa, whether you live in Zimbabwe. You need to be able to access this information about a particular sector like tourism, trade and value chains, money and markets, all these financial data points need to be in existence for us to be able to even make any kind of capital allocation. So that's what I'm currently focused on right now. And we've been building this actually out since January, and have received a lot of strong traction within the investor community. We've seen a lot of policymakers within the tourism sector that are very much interested in this information. And they're saying, where has this been all this time? Well, we've been trying to make some decisions. So those are the two ventures that I'm currently involved in. As far as what kind of skill sets have been instrumental in terms of coming to this point, I think my colleagues have shared something very similar to what I'll share, but I think grit is number one. As an entrepreneur, you will get punched in the face, you will get knocked down, and you need to figure out a way to stand up. And grit is important. Believing in that vision and being able to carry it through even during the dark days is very important. Another aspect, I'm a lawyer by training, so I went to Oliver Schreiner School of Law, WITS, and in those corridors, I learned how to argue, how to hold both sides of the argument and be analytical. And so that's very important. I think that being analytical is going to take you very far as an entrepreneur. It's also a lateral thinking skill because I'm bringing legal training into the business world. And so having that lateral thinking has been very impactful for me. And last, but certainly not least, are the people skills. If you want to galvanize people around a particular vision and you want them to follow you, you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to understand what makes them tick and be able to play to those strengths so that they can, help build the vision. So those are the three things that I would say have carried me thus far.
Excellent. And now we get, and Tami, this time we'll start with you and then go to Rama and then Jane and then Aisha. And I'm going to ask you this in terms of your degrees, and I think you've covered it somewhat with your law degree. But when you look back at your studies and you look back at what you did at WITS or UCT, how much of that do you use right now? Which brings us to how important is having a degree from a university right now? What would you say, Tami?
Okay. Well, I've already alluded to one of those things that law taught me after law school. I went to business school, but what business school didn't teach me and what WITS taught me was the sense of arguing both sides. I think that's very important. Once you get to understand that you can look at a problem from multiple angles, that's something that can uncover certain truths that you might not really see. So lateral thinking is very important. And I think it's still very important to continue to go to class and get the qualification, in the age of AI. AI is good for, I keep referencing legal because that's where I got my chops. And so it can summarize case law for you. It can help you create an essay. But what AI won't do is build character. So if you're simply looking for information, AI will help you. But if you're looking to build your character at 8 a.m. Monday morning class and get lecturer say to you that, well, that lazy idea is not going to fly. I'm going to need to think a little bit deeper than that. That's something that you get from school. If you have to submit your assignment through Turnitin and meet a deadline, that's where you learn grit, which is one of the traits that I mentioned can carry you through. So I think that the formal education is still very important in the age of AI to learn those soft skills that will really carry you through throughout the entrepreneurial journey that you embark on.
Excellent. Nushina Marifel, I hope you're taking notes for after this. AI won't build character. Rama, for you.
Yeah, awesome. I think when I look back to my time at the University of Cape Town, I mean, first is the first time I ever lived outside of home, right? So opportunities to actually really get to know folks. Like I'm getting married later on this year, and I believe 3 of my 5 groupsmen are all from my time at UCT, right? So like it really is the time where you make a lot of decisions for yourself and meet a lot of the folks who will be with you, who will last the test of time. And it's very seldom your high school mates or people from primary school, right? Like so college, I think, has that opportunity for a lot of folks. I think there were a few key factors in my time at UCT. So I studied an undergrad in mechanical engineering, and then studied a postgrad in entrepreneurship and business management, both at UCT. Before I did a master's later on. Well, I did half a master's later on in space systems engineering before dropping out of that. But we'll get into that. Dropped out of that so that I could go work in space. But I think firstly the baseline that it gave me, like mechanical engineering, I chose the most general of the degrees. Initially, I told my parents I was thinking about journalism, and they were not overly enthused by that, right? So my dad is watching, so I'm sure he'll remember that, right? And I said, okay, cool, I'll do mechanical engineering because it felt like the most general of all the degrees. It felt like it would equip me to be able to do anything I want in the future. And for me, by nature, I'm a generalist, which I think is a skill set that most folks should adapt to. And I think as a founder in general, even if you weren't before, now that's who you become. All right, like you've got to be able to wear many hats at any given point in time. So that was useful for me. I think there are a couple of movements, the Fees Must Fall and the Rose Must Fall movements that happened near the tail ends of my time at UCT, which also carried over to WITS, etc., which I personally was a big fan of. Not always about the methodology all the time, but the fact that folks say, hey, look, there are certain things here we'll not stand for. We'll not stand for sort of genocidal folks being sort of posterized at the helm of the best universities in Africa. We'll not stand for folks not being able to afford basic education that will actually set them up for life, right? And that I think I'm fully behind. Right? I feel like education should be free as much as we can, right? So things like that I think had a massive impact for me on my journey. But yeah, I mean, being able to, I was on scholarship for basketball also at UCT, so being able to do that is something that I loved, right? It helped pay for my fees, right, as well. So I had that and student loans and very supportive parents, right, like helped push me through where not everyone will have that ability. So using the skill sets that you do have in front of you, like if there's something that you enjoy, like that can take you far. And worth knowing, at the time, I had scholarship offers to go to Taiwan and also the US for basketball, but I didn't take them because they wouldn't have let me do a mechanical engineering or do an engineering degree in conjunction with that, because that has they have specific goals for that, and I would have just been an athlete, and I feel like that's not the path that I wanted to go down, right? So having conversations with folks and making the right decisions, I think UCT is the right decision for me.
Well, Rama, 2 things. First of all, to your dad, I want to say I think we should be interviewing him too. He sounds like somebody who has a lot of wisdom and insight. And also, I have no doubt you would have been successful at whatever you had done, even if it was journalism. But thank you. And now we go to Jane and then Aisha.
Thank you. So I think university does have a place. I think no matter what your goal is, university is a great time where you are spending learning what you do like, what you don't like, making friends, maturing, etc. Certainly, I have kids who are at university age, and it did occur to me to suggest to them not to go to university and just start a business. If you are at university and you have that luxury, I would say that the thing that's really stood me in great stead are classes like accounting, which are so practical and that I use every day. I think the best thing about the South African education, because I've have an undergraduate from WITS and a postgraduate from a business school here in the US, what WITS really focuses on is partially vocational skills. So I did a BCom, and so I graduated understanding something about law, economics, accounting, etc., and not just a generalist degree. I thought that was incredibly practical and has really stood me in good stead. So I think there really is an incredible role also for the network that universities give, the alumni group. Look at this incredible group that we're speaking to right now, and obviously I want to be available to as many of you as I can be. If you want advice, I don't have a whole lot of time, but certainly the alumni network is really one of the most prized possessions of any university you attend.
Excellent. Oh, thank you, Jane. And by the way, everyone is contactable, at least on LinkedIn. So if you want to know more about our panelists, they are all active and their profiles are up to date. Aisha, you?
I think the panelists have made great points about what you learn as a student in terms of the university curriculum and your degree, and also the experience that you go through just as an individual. And I think it's such a crucial time if you sort of think about like what's the typical sort of undergrad student. You in your early 20s, you in most cases have had the experience of being in school and things are quite rote and structured. And you have this freedom to decide what you're going to study. Are you going to go to your classes? Which classes do you enjoy? What are the aspects that, maybe were not satisfied by a high school experience that you'd like to bring out? And so I think in that sense, it is a unique opportunity for young people to have this world that really is opened up beyond what you were probably exposed to either at school or even in your family. I studied a BSc undergrad in microbiology and biochemistry. I had initially thought that I would study law. Most of my family are lawyers. We have many anti-apartheid activists, and they were generations of lawyers. And it felt like the right thing to do, but not the most interesting thing to do for me personally. And so I ended up not studying law, which I think I would have done quite well at naturally, and studying science, which I was not that particularly good at school. But I was curious. I'm curious about biology. And so I chose to do the hard but interesting thing. I also didn't, I think, appreciate that as a student in my first few years. I didn't, I'd sort of coasted on high school being easy and took that over into university, and then now had all of my hardest courses at high school. And so I didn't do particularly well, and I only started to thrive once I could do research and kind of do things that I could really focus on a question that was interesting. So I think that adversity and having to bear the brunt of your decisions was really, really important. I then studied a BSc in genetics, a BSc honors in genetics, and then did a master's degree in genetics, and then a PhD in genetics. And while I was studying, I realized I didn't want to continue with academia and research. I wanted to get out into the quote unquote real world. And so also studied a business management, an associate in business management at the same time. And that similarly was something I had to navigate. I had to go and try and convince the deans of the business school and the deans of the health sciences faculty that I could do these two very different degrees at the same time and not fail either one, after not having a stellar undergraduate record. So, I think just being on your own and navigating those sorts of things is a great experience. I think entrepreneurship is good, and as Rama said, exposes you to being a generalist, but also you're a generalist around a specific problem, issue, company idea. In university, as Jane said, you can do, a range of courses that, again, might even be outside of your degree focus. So I think there's absolutely still a place, both sort of our development as people for universities. I'm really glad that I spent that amount of time exploring other aspects of myself that I might have ignored otherwise.
Thank you, Aisha. And I'm curious, Marifil, do we have any questions in the chat that you'd like to ask the panelists now? Anything specific? Because my question is going to start with Rama next, but is there anything you specifically want to ask?
Yes, I actually saw this one question from Jess that I'd like to lift up to the panelists. And the question is, many students are sitting where you once sat, looking at people like yourselves and wondering, how did you get your first break? What did you do differently that opened doors and led to the opportunities that shaped your career?
So this time we'll go Rama, Jane, Aisha, and then Tammy, if that's okay. And we'll keep switching orders. Thank you, Rama. Are you clear with the question? Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, I guess it's a matter of perspective, right? Like, what's the first break, right? My first break is having parents who are educated and wanted the best for us, right? But if I had to say, like, when I was first, like, definitely on a path that would sort of like make the trajectory a lot clearer and open up significant possibilities, I think was probably when I got my first job, right? Purely because like of the way things happened, like Tesla was looking for one intern in all of Africa, and I said, why the hell not me, right? And at the time, I'd been starting a startup of my own in Cape Town. And I decided to not take this job at the reservoir in Durban, that would have been soul destroying, right? So I opted to risk. And then while taking that risk, turns out that Tesla was going to come in and they were going to be in Cape Town, and I got to interview in person, which always, if you can interview in person, you should do it. It sets you apart from literally anyone else, right? Every opportunity you get for that. So I'd say that was the first break. Is like there's a lot of luck and timing, right? In general, they were looking for an engineer who's got a business acumen to come in and be an account manager and a sales engineer. And it's like just so happened that that's exactly what I'd studied, right? So there was a lot of luck involved. But still, someone had to take that opportunity because there were people who done much better than me in class, would actually paid attention and gone to all their lectures, right? And there were some folks like me who were like, let's get the degree, right? So I think that was but I'd say that was the first break because from there, I think your trajectory ends up being set by like, that first role. It's sort of like compounds exponentially. Like, what is the next thing you can do? Folks take you a little bit more seriously. It's just sort of like signals things forward to folks in the future.
Thank you. And Jane, first break.
Yeah. First break, I guess, again, tapping that network, that alumni network that I spoke about and finding, my first job. But I do want to say two things. The first thing is when something seems overwhelming, just do a little bit of it every single day. So an inch adds up to 7 inches over the course of a week, and then, 365 inches over the course of a year. And so doing something hard every single day, a little bit of it adds up, and manifesting what you think, we're sitting here today, you're sitting in your seat. If you want to, do what Rama does, or, Aisha or Tammy, or even Nadia, imagine yourself in that position and then work towards that. So every single day, try and do something that brings you closer to, doing the incredible, interviewing that Nadia does. So I think, putting out that vision of yourself into the world and really believing it and working towards it honestly brings you good luck. And then just keep your eyes open for that opportunity to leverage an alumnus, or speak to someone who can offer you that job, because it will all fall into place.
And I think to your point around Rama, getting that first job, you have to reach out. And sometimes the difficult thing is the reaching out because there is rejection involved, right? So sometimes that can be very hard, but keep trying. I love that, Jane. Thank you. Aisha, first break for you.
I think my first break, just in terms of transitioning into this career, was recognizing that I wanted to study something or be exposed to something outside of research. As much as I loved it, it felt like not quite the full picture. And so going to the dean of the Graduate School of Business and saying, I've seen that there's this business administration degree. Can I sign up for it? And to your point, I was really nervous about having that conversation because one, I was like, I might get in trouble because this is not really allowed. And two, the rejection and, the idea of, will they say no because I'm not good enough? And it's something that, I've got a 16-year-old, my eldest child is 16, and I tell her that the worst that you have often to lose with these sorts of things is just someone says no. It doesn't even have to personally affect how you feel about yourself or what you think about the plan. And so that was, a big jump because, again, I'd previously spent almost 10 years in a lab with cells and in a white lab coat. I had no idea what the business world looks like. In fact, if you asked me what people do at work in a business, I would not have been able to tell you. And so that exposed me to business, both sort of just the idea of businesses and companies and how they work, and also some of the harder skills. And then I went on to work in management consulting after that. Rama, I did go for the thing that was soul destroying. Management consulting was a great experience, but it was soul destroying as an entrepreneur. And I decided then that I wanted to start my own business, and had the idea for my first company, Sweep South. But I think it was that first step of just saying, like, what if maybe there's something more, and then going to explore that. And I think it's so important to feel how you feel in your body when you're doing whatever you're doing, and to ask yourself, is this it? Is this enough? Do I feel like I'm in the right place? And then if you're not, go and do something about it and try and meet people who might represent what you want to do. I love reading biographies. I find them hugely inspiring, and it opens up the world of what's possible. And then, yeah, just, go and explore, and then figure out if it feels like it's the right thing or not. And if it's not, then go and do some more exploring.
That takes courage. As Nelson Mandela famously said, and I paraphrase, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the taking of action despite the fear. For you, Tammy.
Okay. I think I've had a couple of breaks, but I'll highlight two of them. The first one, and the piece of advice on the back of that, is thinking outside of the box. I remember in law school, we must have had like 400 students within Oliver Schreiner. And each year, you can imagine that these graduates have to be absorbed by law firms. And there's only a handful of law firms that can absorb them. I think the top 5 law firms, your Bauman, Gilfillan, etc., ENS, they absorb like 30 students per cohort. So across the 4, that's 120, which leaves the rest of the graduates without a home. And that's just considering WITS University. Now, amplify that across all the different universities across the country, and you'll see that there's so many graduates and then very little by way of absorption into the workforce. So I said to myself, well, the math is not adding up here, and I'm not going to get an opportunity if I don't do something differently. So I thought outside of the box, and I started reaching out to firms, smaller firms that were punching above their weight, that I thought would give me an opportunity. And fortunately, and sure enough, someone opened their door to me, right? So I went to work at a firm called RHP on Melrose Arc, and they've gone on to do great things. They were acquired by PwC at some point, and I got to now be a lawyer in a firm that had been acquired by a big US firm, right? So that was my first lucky break. Then I moved to the US, and when I moved to the US, the advice that I got was to network. And I'll say this to everyone listening as well. Network as much as possible. Keep those relationships. You never know when you'll need them, and you don't want to have those. Try to create those relationships rather when you need them. You want to have them by the time you need them. So you want to network before you need those relationships. I'll give you an example of what happened then. I was looking for a job at a company called Investor Group Services, and they came to Career Day at the campus that I was on, and I knew that I needed to start with them at the tail end of the year, around August, call it. And they came Career Day around February, March, and I spoke to them, and I kept in touch with the recruiter there. I knew I was going to be away for a while, traveling to London because they had a rotation program. But I kept on emailing and say, hey, we met at this Career Day. I hope you remember. Here's my resume. I've submitted this and that. Well, I've just finished this course now. This is where I am with my studies. And I kept on updating the person. And when I was finally done with my studies, they invited me over for an interview. And something in that interview that was really unusual happened. She said to me, well, do you remember the role that I shared with you during Career Day? I said, yes, absolutely, I do. And then she said, okay, you start on Monday. That was the end of the interview, right? So that's just a testament to networking. So those are the two things that I'll say gave me my lucky break. And I've continued to think outside of the box, continue to network, and that has never steered me wrong. So I'd say those are the two things that you should walk away with.
And please, Tummy is offering internships, obviously, to qualified candidates. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. Also, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn and give me your email, I will send you an electronic copy of my latest book, which is Own Your Network, Networking in an AI-centric World. Because, as you said, Tummy, network most when you need it least. I will also tell you networking is as much about being a go-giver as it is being a go-getter. So bear that in mind, but reach out to all of us on LinkedIn. So first and next question is for Jane Levy. And this time, Marifel, do we have any other questions in the chat, or I will go ahead with my questions?
We do have another question in the chat. And this is a practical question, and it's from Prince. And Prince asked, if you're working full-time while building a company on the side, at what point can you confidently decide to leave your job and pursue the business full-time? Given the risks involved, how do you prepare financially to support both yourself and the company if things didn't go as planned?
Thank you. So Jane,
Yeah.
Aisha, if you'll answer in that order.
Absolutely. That is just such a great question. And I'm not sure where you are in your life, Prince, but the great news is that I found, having gone between companies and startups my whole life, is that you start off in a company, you leave, you go to your startup. If you ever have to go back, because you've had some experience working in a company, you can always go back. I think that's fairly easy to do. So when do you decide that your startup is strong enough for you to leave your corporate job? I would say if you feel that you have something which you can look up, which is product market fit. And by that, I mean, are you getting sales traction? So have you built a product and sufficient kind of runway for the company such that you have the ability to, let's say, take 6 to 12 months. So you have enough capital to fund that, and that you can go out into the market and sell your product, and you are actually getting traction with that product. So you're getting people who are buying it, who are sticking with it. So depending on what product it is, what you really want to see is that if people are paying monthly for it, that they are sticking with it for a couple of months at least, or maybe even a year. So you're seeing definite traction in the product that you're building. Also that you can see a path forward. Is it getting more competitive? Do you think that there are folks out there who would want to fund such a business? So just understanding your prospects in terms of the market, as well as the capital sources in standing up a company, will give you more confidence to leave your corporate job. But always remember, you can go back to that corporate job for the most part, maybe not the same company, but certainly one similar if things don't work out.
Thank you, Jane. Aisha, then Tummy, and then Rama.
I would say you should also look at your personal expenses, and one, in preparation for leaving your job, when and if that happens, try and scale down. It's one of the things that we did before starting Sweep South, where we had a bit of savings, but we really wanted to stretch. And it was not a good idea to do that once we'd already left our job. So in preparation, really try to just get our personal burn down to the bare minimum. I would also definitely have, enough savings to get to product market fit and to get to being able to cover your own expenses with either your own revenue or with an external investment. And I would anticipate that it'll take longer than you think. It always takes longer than you think, in my experience. So, have a plan to need to dip into a pool of money longer than you probably imagined that it'll take you to cover your own costs. You've also got to hold two things at the same time, which is so often the case with entrepreneurship. The one is burn the ships and put everything into it. And at the same time, know that there's going to be a point where if things aren't working and you don't get product market fit and you're not getting traction, there's got to be a limit where you either need a hard pivot or to go back into work or to sort of, to execute plan B. And to have that in mind, because I think it's very easy to get sucked into an idea and it becomes everything. And I've seen some entrepreneurs run themselves into ruin by doing that. And then, yeah, also just understanding the industry, preparing yourself by getting mentorship is something that I didn't do well. I still struggle with. But don't sort of go on this journey by yourself. There are people in the industry, there are people in your life, there are other entrepreneurs, there are investors, there are advisors, there are people who can help you on the journey and hopefully also cut down some of that time when you have to do everything alone.
I told you this would be a master class. We will transcribe it and turn it into a book. Aisha, Jane, Rama, Tammy. Tammy, your thoughts?
I wish I had a job to fall back on when I started my first business, because I was actually laid off and I had to make the hard decision of trying to figure out what to do. And it took me about 6 months to realize the first dollar. So the advice that I would share is it's very important to save up, give yourself enough runway. Entrepreneurship is a risk and reward, actually high risk, high reward game, but it's also about calculated risks. So I'd say de-risk that upfront, picking back on what Jane said. Make sure that you've done your research. I'm a data guy. So make sure you've done your research, make sure that you found the product market fit, make sure that you see a pathway forward for you to actually make your first dollar. So I'd say that those are the things that you want to consider. It's your savings, and make sure that you've not just an idea, but an idea that you've de-risked through research, finding out, is there a market for this? Is the market big enough? Is there someone who's going to buy? Who's my customer? And creating a through line for all of those different things so that you can actually realize some revenue. And then maybe you can think about quitting your job.
Thank you, Rama.
Ooh, I think everyone is very practical. I think take their advice, not mine, right? In this regard, right? For me, I think that life is full of the opportunity to take risk or to not take it, right? And when you have an opportunity to take a few risks, why not? YOLO, right? I think I was strategic to an extent, in that before starting things off, I knew I needed to make sure that there was a time when that I had to be at Google in order to get my bonus. I knew I was going to take a massive pay cut to go to SpaceX, and I knew that SpaceX, if they weren't doing the thing I wanted them to be working on when I'm there, was going to be transient for me, and I would be leaving quite quickly when I got there internally, it wouldn't be. So I knew I had to have a measure of savings, if you will. It's never been really my forte. So thankfully things have worked out regardless, right? But it is probably a good practice. For me, I feel like if you have a real this burning conviction for something, it transcends most things, right? If that's also, of course, speaking from a position of privilege of having now surpassed those initial gripes, but every single day could be death for your company, right? Every single day could be the end, right? You could be having the best day ever and get a rejection from an investor from 3 months before, right? Just out of nowhere because you were having too good of a day, right? I don't know. That sort of thing happens all the time, but it's all part of the adventure, right? I feel like life is for the adventurous spirit. So in terms of working full time while starting your business, one thing I would say is that if you're swinging for the fences, very few investors take you seriously if you haven't taken the leap. So it's a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? In that if your plan is to raise venture capital, if that's, I mean, that's one potential trajectory. You could bootstrap, you could do some do things in a different way. But if that is your plan, right? Like for me, I did it before product market fit because this is a sort of a category that just didn't exist, right? Until literally 6 months ago, and I was starting this 2 years ago, right? So like getting that is very difficult, but I had a pretty strong feeling that this would be something that would be important in the future, and so I took the leap regardless, right? So yeah, like I think that doing it part time. I mean, I had started like doing some it's like work on this on the side like over like 6 months or so, but it was never like, oh, I've got a project. I always knew I'm going to go full time in this, and there was a couple of metrics I was going to use, and those metrics had nothing to do with the business, and that's what's weird, right? That's why I say take everyone else's advice. My metrics had to do with the way I was in life, and I felt like I was credible enough, right, to go out and get this thing done.
Again, for extraordinary panelists, for extraordinary stories. We have to cover the subject of AI. And if this time, Rama, we can start with you, and then we'll go to Tami, then Aisha and Jane, is how are you using AI yourself? And then advice and guidance to every single person who is joining us today. What is your advice on AI literacy, Rama? What do we need to know if we're going to be competitive?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I love that the word artificial is in the word, right? Because it's not real intelligence, right? Like really, it's like glorified like autocorrect, right? That's really what it does, predicts the next possible word. That's not to say it's not powerful and does have an impact because it clearly has changed, has moved markets. The entire US economy is now like completely like AI driven, right? Like Nvidia, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, etc. Right? So it's got an impact. Like I personally, I use AI every day, right? And I think that's true for a lot of people these days, right? Like for tasks that I really don't want to do, I'm like, okay, let's figure out a way to like make this simpler. But for me, I think what I fear is like sometimes I get interns joining who just use AI for everything, and the problem is like it stops you actually thinking through certain problems. It stops you like guiding certain principles, and like a good chunk of time, there's hallucinations in there that you actually wouldn't have known had you not done the work. So you've got to be careful in that regard. That said, for us, we are building foundational AI for the orchestration and control plane of satellites in space. So I kind of have to know what I'm talking about to an extent, right? As much as my CTO and the team like go dive a little bit deeper, but I've got to set that direction. And so for us, because we're like on that frontier of that also, right? We have to be careful about how we use things as well, because it's sort of like it ends up being this like weird churn cycle of AI talking to AI. You see AI emails bouncing back and forth, AI telling you what to build for your business, and then you're using that to build your own AI. Right? Even like DeepSeek and these folks have like trained their AI on other people's AI, right? Rather than having to build it from the ground up. That sort of thing is very strange to me, right? Because it can have like a weird impact, I think, on the overall economy. But that's to say, AI is a tool. I think if you don't use it, you'll be left behind. If Africans don't have access to our own AI data sets that we're using and we're training ourselves, we will be in serious problems like sometime in the near future. So to the extent that we can do that, that folks can put rig up their own AI labs and start doing that, like or join like Google in Ghana has like they've always had this AI lab before it was cool, right? Like there's places that you can go, there's things that you can do, right, to have an indelible impact on this. And the fact that right now it's essentially like subsidized by like 80-90% of the AI you're using is subsidized by venture capital, right? Until these IPOs happen, like you should make use of that now while you can, right? Like find a way to get like a subscription for the most expensive versions of these AI so that you're not limited. Like borrow money from a friend, do something, right? Because there's going to become a point when it's going to be very expensive. It's going to happen, right? So get ahead of that.
Oh, that's great advice. We only have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to ask quickly, Tammy, your thoughts, Aisha, and then Jane.
Okay, I'm going to be quick about it. So, I want to say that around 2023, someone asked me, how is AI going to impact research? And I brushed it off. Now, fast forward to 2026, I have a full block on Fridays where I call it AI experiments, and I play around with the latest tools and try to see what's out there so that I can incorporate it into my workflows. And I rely on it quite heavily. So that's how fast AI has come to the forefront. In terms of how we use it, I think human in the looping it is the way to go. Like Rama has already said, there are a lot of hallucinations, there are a lot of issues with AI. I use it to brainstorm, I use it to have first drafts, I use it to synthesize information, I use it for pattern recognition. And my team actually were having this discussion prior to this call, and we're talking about our AI charter. So we have an AI charter, and we even share this with external clients so that they know that we're using AI responsibly. So it has to be put in its proper context whenever you're utilizing it. And then the last thing that I'll say is that with AI, the issue of data is very important, and you can't run analytics on a piece of paper. Digitization has been a big problem in Africa, and with Africa Insights, part of what we're trying to do there is digitize the information so that you can run your analytics on top of the data that we've already shared. So it's part of enabling infrastructure that we're building that has AI usage as an end goal. So it's a prominent issue, and we're looking at it and utilizing it very, very closely.
Thank you, Aisha.
So we use AI across, I use AI every day as well across my two companies in our fund. For Sweep South, we use it to automate a lot of our processes. It's an operations heavy business, and so we've embedded a lot of AI to automate. With Pandora Health, it's an AI first company. If you take AI out of it, it sort of removes a lot of the value proposition. So we use AI to personalize people's health reports and health dashboards. We use it to draw insights around people's lifestyle versus risk for conditions that they may be predisposed to, or based on their health and demographic data. And then I've also, over the last year or so, put off a good number of hires in marketing and engineering because we just use AI for those functions. I'm non-technical. I don't code. I use AI for coding. I use Claude Code. And so, yeah, just, across everything. E4E, again, we automated. We have multiple agents in the fund that carry out functions from when we receive a funding application all the way through to making the funding decision. There are humans involved, but a lot of AI usage as well. And I think without repeating too much of the great points that have been made, so the risks around AI that I think are really important. Again, I think it's an incredible tool, incredible. It's the new internet, so it's important that people are able to use it. We don't want to be left behind in the same way that we have people who have and are being left behind just with the internet and the digital revolution. But the risks are, and I remember reading the study, I was trying to find it about people's brain scans of people who use AI to complete a task in essay writing versus people who don't. And I find even with tasks that I've gotten my AI to do, and they're things that I knew how to do before, trying to do them without AI now feels like if you exercise, let's say, you do bicep curls every day, and then you stop doing it and you find that muscle when you try again a month later down the line is weak. And so I think that is a real risk, that we're not training our brains to use very important cognitive processes that we then, it just becomes difficult to do it. And I sort of wonder, like, are we just not going to be able to do that anymore as people, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but that's a risk. The other risk is that if we don't use AI and don't understand it and understand what you can do with it and its limitations, I fear for people who'll be caught in traps, whether it's fraud, scams, just being left behind because you sort of are just so outside of the job market and can't do these things. So I'm also concerned about people who are just not being exposed to what AI is capable of and don't understand it.
Thank you. And Jane, we will give you the last word on
The
this.
last very quick word, because I know we're at time. All of my colleagues made great points, all of the above, but I will also say, since I've had a very long career and was around when Internet 1.0 occurred, there was a massive dislocation in industries, and that's always incredible opportunity. So as things remove, people who've had experience, maybe that experience is not so valuable now that AI has come around. And so all you youngsters have opportunity because experience may not be as valuable as it once was.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our extraordinary panelists for your time, for your wisdom, for your expertise. Thank you to each and every one of you who joined us and stayed on the call the entire time. And to WITS and UCT, our alums, we appreciate you, the education you gave us, and we look forward to many, many more incredible conversations. So Nosheen, over to you. Please link in with all of us and let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you so much, Nadia. What a wonderful, inspiring conversation. The first of many, I'm sure. And as you said, a masterclass. So thank you, everyone, for staying, and we'll see you soon.